Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. And today is the second birthday of this whole channel. It's been 2 years and it's gone pretty quickly, and that's a very frightening thing when you get to my age. But today we are going back in time because we're going to look at the first video I made for this channel and see what's changed and if I've grown at all, which I'm not entirely sure I have. But let's go just look at it and go over some of the finer points, and I'll maybe talk about what I would do differently now, or what I thought of it. Because what I think of it now is different to what I thought of it when I uploaded it. Because when I uploaded it, I thought it was a masterpiece. It's not. But hey, I'm here now with 400 subscribers, so thank you. And with that, let's begin.
Welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport.
I'm genuinely excited. I haven't actually watched this video for a very long time.
Sometimes that dream job in Formula One rolls up and you can become a world champion. Other times you find yourselves at a team that can barely make a car move, let alone race at a competitive level.
I forgot how bad that microphone sounded because for some reason I went with the microphone that comes on a headset thing, and that microphone is atrociously bad, instead of the Blue Yeti I had sitting around in a cupboard gathering dust. That was the first key decision I made on the channel. But the first part of this video, I think the first minute or two, was done with a really shitty microphone. The rest of it with a really good one that wasn't set up properly. That is one thing that has changed. The audio is 100 times better. Not perfect, but better.
And then when your career peters out in Formula One, you need something else to do. And quite often, people found themselves racing in the British Touring Car Championship. Here are 10 drivers who once raced in Formula One, but ended up in the British Touring Cars.
Believe it or not, I spent about 2 hours making those transitions, and they really are awful. I think I should use them in another video as well, and then got rid of them forever.
Most people probably know Guy Edwards as the man who pulled Niki Lauda from his burning racing car during the 1976 German Grand Prix. But the man actually had an unremarkable Formula One career, racing for Graham Hill's racing team in the 1974 season, with a best position of 7th at Sweden and 8th in Monaco, but a couple of retirements and did not qualify at other racetracks. He only did half a season anyway. 2 years later, he'd race for the Penthouse Vizsla team, which again would feature did not qualify in Belgium and a best position of 15th at the 1976 German Grand Prix. And in 1977, he'd enter one Grand Prix, the British Grand Prix, for which he did not pre-qualify for BRM. His British touring car career wasn't much better, as he would have 2 seasons racing for the Rouse Sport Ford Sierra team, with a couple of podiums in Class A, but never really challenging Andy Rouse for any victories.
Because Guy Edwards there is just 2 seconds behind him now. Guy Edwards making a terrific effort in the closing stages of the race. Into the S's goes Andy Rouse. And there's a squeal of tyres. Edwards is off.
Okay, so there were about 48 drivers who have raced in Formula One and the British Touring Cars. And for some reason I chose Guy Edwards to go first. I should have probably chosen someone, more well known. The first guy I talk about on this channel is Guy Edwards, who, how many people have actually heard of him? Maybe a few mega fans here and there. When I was younger, I had no idea who Guy Edwards was. I had no idea he was in Formula One at any point. That was something I learned much later. Now the video, when it actually cuts to the video of Guy Edwards spinning at Alton Park, there is no transition at all. It's clunky as hell. It's it's my video, and it cuts to that video. The sound is not equal at all. You'll probably have to turn up the bits where I'm playing the old video, because that's as loud as I can get it. And, the video playing is much louder. So you're going to have to adjust your volume quite a lot for this video, I imagine. But, I've got most of the facts out there. I'm pretty sure they're still right. So, not a bad start, I guess.
Johnny Giotto would spend the 1983 season with the Theodore Racing Team. He'd score a point at Long Beach, but the rest of his season was spent retiring from 3 races and not qualifying for a further 4. In 1984, he'd spend half a season with the Tolman team, where he would retire from 7 races, not qualify for the British Grand Prix, and have a best finish of 9th in Canada. His British touring car career was spent with 1 season in 1995 with BMW, where he would have a few 4th place finishes, but not much else, and he'd end up the season 12th.
So Johnny Giotto raced for Tolman team, not the Tolman team, just Tolman team. And I didn't want to mention the fact that Johnny Giotto is a very, very successful touring car driver, just not in the British touring cars. He was Super Tourenwagen champion, so I really didn't give him a fair slice of the cake.
David Brabham probably wishes he never bothered entering Formula One in the first place. He'd spent 1990 with his father's team, by this point washed up beyond all belief, where he would spend most of the season either not qualifying or retiring from races. The one race he did finish was in France, and he only finished 15th. He'd take 4 years to get back to this level with Simtek, but again, he'd retire from 10 races that season, with his best finish being a 10th in Spain and 11th in Hungary. In 95, he would enter the British touring cars with BMW, teammates to Johnny Giotto. And just like his teammate, he would have a mediocre season, finishing 1 point below him in the standings. Even Formula One legends would race in the British Touring Car Championship. Nigel Mansell's Formula One career began with Lotus in 1980, before changing to Williams in 1985 and taking his first victories. He'd changed to Ferrari in 1989, and after winning a few races would go back to Williams in 91. In 92, he'd capture the title before being frozen out of the team in 93 by Prost signing and heading to America to win the kart series. He'd return in 94 after the death of Senna, winning the last race in Australia before moving to McLaren in 95 and having no success whatsoever, racing only 2 races before retiring for good. His British touring car career is a bit more complicated. In 93, he entered the Toka Shootout, and if you want to know how that went, just watch the interludes in this video. He'd come back in 98 and race for Ford, where, in the wet at Donington, he would qualify 19th in the feature race before finding himself in the lead of the race. Towards the end, he'd drop back and finish 5th, but it was still a sign of the master driver that he really was. However, the rest of his British touring car career is pretty forgettable.
Welcome to the only video on the internet where David Brabham and Nigel Mansell are mentioned next to each other. Not much to say about David Brabham one, pretty much everything was there. Nigel Mansell one, I said his British touring car career was complicated. It wasn't that complicated. He raced in the 1993 Toka Shootout and like 4 or 6 races in 1998, and that's it. There's nothing complicated about it. And he wasn't that good in touring cars. I don't know why I said he was the master driver. I think he got lucky in one race, and the rest of them he either crashed or finished way down. So, yeah, that one probably a bit of a mess. I also told you to pay attention to the transitions to see his Toka Shootout crash. No one should be paying attention to those transitions.
Winkelhock's Formula One career is basically a non-starter, and this is a bit of a stretch. He'd entered 7 races with AGS in 1989, and he wouldn't pre-qualify for any of them. He'd have a lot more success in touring cars, having a lot of international success, as well as winning the British touring cars in 93. He'd win a few races in 94, as well as 96. But that's all he entered in British touring cars.
It's Tarquini! What happened?
The godfather of touring cars would start his Formula One career in 1987 with a single race for Osella, before moving to Colony Spa in 1988. He made have a pretty terrible season. He'd moved to AGS in 89 and 90 and 91, but he would fail to qualify for most of the races and gained a single point in Mexico. He'd moved to Fondmetal at the end of the 91 season, and in 92 he retired from every single race except the British Grand Prix. His final race in Formula One was in 95 with Tyrrell, where he finished 14th in the European Grand Prix. His touring car career was much more successful, winning the British touring cars in 94 with Alfa Romeo, before returning again in 97 with Honda and getting a single win and finishing 6th in the series. In 2000, he'd again return with Honda, getting 3 wins and finishing again 6th. He'd also win the European Touring Car Championship, the World Touring Car Championship, and just last year won the World Touring Car Cup. So still a very talented driver.
Well, I barely said anything about Joachim Winkelhock, who is one of the best touring car drivers of all time. But I remember being really excited to talk about Gabriele Tarquini, and he really is still one of my favourite race drivers ever. And I'm really happy he's still racing in 2021. Though there's not too much to say about it, it's probably the best one on the list just because it starts with a video, which is different to the rest. And I think it's a good cut, and I love that bit of commentary with Murray Walker going, it's Tarquini, what happened? He's brilliant, and I love him. And I love Tarquini, and I love that clip, and this was mostly just an opportunity to gush over my favourite racing driver ever.
Roland Ratzenberger's Formula One career was tragically short, entering 3 races for Simtek in 1994, not qualifying for the Brazilian Grand Prix, and then finishing 11th at the Pacific Grand Prix. He wouldn't start the race in San Marino due to sadly being killed in qualifying a single day before Ayrton Senna's death. He spent half a season in the British Touring Cars in 1988, racing a Group B BMW, where he would take a single-class win against the dominant pro-drive BMWs of Frank Sittner and Mike Smith.
Well, this was just morbid. I'm just moving on.
Most people probably know Tiffany Dell as a presenter on Top Gear and Fifth Gear, but the man actually entered 2 races in Formula One. In 1980 with the Ensign team, he would retire from the Belgian Grand Prix and then not qualify for the Monaco Grand Prix. His touring car career was sporadic, first entering in 1987 with a Group D Toyota, before in 1989 entering a Class A Ford Sierra with Lawrence Bristow, winning the endurance race where there was driver swaps. He'd returned in 92 with Nissan for the last race, before spending half a season with them in 93, but not scoring any points. He would again return with Nissan in 94, getting a couple of point-scoring finishes, but only racing half a season again, before making a one-round appearance in 98, again with Nissan, and then a final appearance in 2001, racing a production-class Honda Accord, finishing 14th.
Why did I only use one picture for Tiffany Dell? I could have used more pictures, and that would have been better, but instead I had one picture of a Nissan for 40 seconds when he raced at least a few years for Nissan. I could have used several different Nissans. So again, that is another way I have improved. Just, general decision making.
Not much needs to be said about David Coulthard's Formula One career. It started in 1994 with Williams, before taking his first victory in the Williams in 1995 in Portugal. In 96, he moved to McLaren, where he'd spent the majority of his career, taking many victories along the way, before moving to Red Bull for the last few years of his career, where he'd have a couple of podiums before retiring just before they became a successful juggernaut of a team. His brief British touring car career actually was only one race in 1990 in a Vauxhall Cavalier in Class B at the 9th round at Brands Hatch, where he finished 13th.
And now we're getting into the whole reason this video and the channel as a whole exists. The decision to make a video and start a channel was entirely based upon the fact that I knew David Coulthard and Damon Hill had a race each in the British touring cars, and I thought most people wouldn't know that. I think that's not as true as I first thought, but here's a very, very brief summary of David Coulthard's career in Formula One and the one race in British touring cars. So, if you didn't know that before, you do now.
Damon Hill raced in the British Touring Car Championship, a fact that I like to bust out at parties, which explains why I don't get invited to any anymore. He started his career with the failing Brabhams team in 1992, before quickly jumping ship to Williams in 1993. He'd have most of his success there, finishing 3rd in the championship that year,
before finishing second in 94 and 95 and then winning the world title in 96. He'd make the strange move to Arrows in 1997, where he'd almost win in Hungary. He'd spent his last 2 years with Jordan, where he'd take their first ever victory in Belgium, before retiring in 1999. His very brief British touring car career was one single race in 1989 in the endurance classics they used to have, sharing his Ford Sierra with Sean Walker. And that's it. There isn't much else to say about it than that. I can't believe I just ended it with, there's not much else to say than that. Maybe I should end all my videos like that. I guess there isn't much more to say than that. But, you know, Damon Hill raced in the British touring car, sharing a drive with Sean Walker in 1989. And that was a reason to make a video, apparently. But, you know, it was kind of an interesting list. I think I went on to make another 3 of these, and they got, you know, more and more obscure as I went on. And the last one, I think even I hadn't heard of some of the drivers. But, you know, I enjoyed making them. I still love the British touring cars, and, you know, I still love Formula 1. It's kind of an interesting point that there was a crossover, because you don't really get it that much anymore. I know we had Mark Blundell, was it in 2019 or 2020? I think it's 2019. And that's the end of this video. But don't worry, I have plenty more drivers who raced in Formula 1 and eventually British touring cars. So, if you want to see that, like and subscribe and leave a comment and whatever, and I'll talk to you soon.
Now the chicane. So Harvey is third, Hill is fourth, Percy, we're with him, is fifth. And Damon Hill hits Harvey as they go out of the chicane. Percy is past Hill up into fourth position.
I can't believe I ended the video with a short video clip of Damon Hill driving into someone and a Comic Sans text message saying thank you for watching and comments are welcome. Comments are welcome, by the way. I will answer them in 3 to 6 weeks. I really enjoyed going back and watching this video. As I said, it's been a very long time since I've seen it. It's not as bad as I thought it was. I have come a long way since, though. I think my editing's better. Even though I'm using the same editor and it's very, very clunky to use, I think I'm much more used to it now. And the audio is better. I script at least half my video, so it's a lot less rambling and just talking random bullshit, really. Not completely, though, apparently. But yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing if you have. Thank you for all the support. It does really mean a lot. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do it now. I think it's time we started heading towards 500. That would be a really, really cool target to reach. When I hit 100, I did a week of videos to celebrate. When we get to 500, I'll do the same. And I'll pick out some special topics to do as well. Other than that, there's not much else to say. Then thank you for watching, and have a good one.